I've heard it said that children laugh up to 300 times a day. And I've also read reports that adults laugh less than 20 times a day. Well, I want to tell you a little story about when I was a child. I want to tell you about my very first bicycle. I was 6 years old. Oh, I wanted a bicycle. I wanted a bicycle. Well, I finally got my very first bicycle. It was a hand-me-down, 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 hand-me-down bicycle. I was the sixth owner of that bicycle. Hand-me-down. That's a noun. And in America, we used to hand down clothes from one generation to the next, from older siblings to younger siblings, older cousins to younger cousins. And we'd also hand down bicycles. Well, I had a hand-me-down, 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 hand-me-down bicycle. Yeah, let me tell you about this bicycle. It was faded red. The name of the bicycle was a Roadmaster. That was the kind of bicycle it was. Let me tell you about the bicycle seat. I didn't have a bicycle seat. The seat was long gone. We took and tied rags and made a makeshift seat on it. And my dad and others were teaching me how to ride the bicycle. Now, did I use training wheels to ride that bicycle? Well, no. No one knew where those training wheels were, if there ever were training wheels with that bicycle. And I want to tell you, I was a little boy, and that was a big bicycle. In fact, it was too big for me. It absolutely was too big for me. But I tried to ride it. My dad would help me, and they'd push me, and I'd fall over. And they'd push me, and I'd fall over. And I'd try to ride, and I'd fall over. Well, it came time for first grade to begin, and I went to first grade. Mrs. Barba was my first grade teacher. She was a good teacher. And I went my first day of first grade, and I went in there all excited, and I enjoyed school. And I went home, and when I got home after that first day of first grade, I went and got on my bicycle. And all by myself, I was going to ride that bicycle. And I tried to ride that bicycle. You know what happened? Fell down. But this time it was worse than ever. Sometimes I'd fallen down and it hurt. But this time I fell down and I broke my arm. I broke my left arm. In fact, there's two bones in your arm, and I broke one of the bones entirely in half, and the other bone, I fractured it badly. So I had to go to the doctor. I had to go to some kind of emergency room. I'd never been to a place like that. I got in there, and at first I was crying bad, because it hurts to break your arm. But then it became kind of numb and didn't hurt so bad. And I'm waiting to be seen. They took x-rays, and they looked at my arm, and they put a great big cast on my arm. It went all the way down my hand, went all the way up my arm, and way up here. Even though I broke my arm about here, they wanted to get it where I couldn't move my arm very much to get those bones out of place. So here I am with a great big cast, and had a sling. And I went to school the next day, the second day of first grade. I go in there, and wow, I've got a cast on. Everybody wanted to see what's happened to Byron? What's happened to Byron? Well, I'd broken my arm. Well, we really didn't know how to write. So we didn't sign our names on that cast, but we colored on it, drew things on it. We had a good time with that cast. I went back to have my arm looked at, and they get out this little saw and a little blade on it, and they're running it along, and they said, it's not going to hurt you, son. And I'm there, and they take my cast off, and my arm, oh, there's my arm. Oh, and they took and they x-rayed it again. And they said, oh, we're going to keep that cast on. So they put another big cast on. So I went back to school for several more days. It's been weeks now. And I go to the doctor the third time. And I go back and they cut that off, and I'm hoping that I don't have to wear that cast anymore. They said, yeah, he's going to have to wear the cast a little bit longer, a few more days. But this time they put a short cast on, just from my wrist up here, just a little ways, because I'd broken it here. And so my cast was easier. I could move my arm. Oh, yeah. And I went back and they cut it off, and they said he no longer has to wear a cast. But for the next few days, we're going to wrap this little bandage around it and keep it on during the day so he doesn't re-injure that arm. Oh, and then finally I got to go without having even the bandage on. It was so nice to have my arm again. Let's go back to that bicycle. Yeah, that bicycle. Yeah. I wasn't the final owner of that bicycle. No. And I want to tell you one other story about that bicycle. I got back to where my arm was okay, and I'd learned to ride that bicycle a little now, and I'm riding a bicycle. I'm still in first grade, and my bicycle got stolen. Somebody stole my bicycle, and I found out who it was. It was a boy that we all called Toby. We called him Toby, and I knew where Toby lived, and somebody told me, Toby's got your bicycle. So I went and I looked, and yeah, Toby had my bicycle. So I went home to my dad, and I said, Dad, my bicycle's been stolen, and I know who has it. And my dad said, well, we'll just go over there, and I'll have a talk with his dad. And so me and my dad went over there to see Toby and his dad. We knocked on the door, and Toby's dad came out there to the door. And my dad talked to him, and I'm looking and I'm watching, and I thought maybe, now I'm a little boy, I thought maybe my dad might beat his dad up. But they didn't fight at all. No, they didn't fight. No. But Toby's dad said, Toby, you shouldn't have stolen this bicycle. And I think Toby may have gotten a spanking. I know that Toby got in trouble. But I got my bicycle back, and I got it back to my house, and I began riding my bicycle. Oh, yeah, it still didn't have a bicycle seat. It was still really big. It was faded red, but I liked my bicycle. Oh, while I had it, while I was the owner of it, I really liked that bicycle. You know, in America today, somehow we've got this idea that we've got to have the best of everything. Extravagance is one of the biggest sins in America today. Greed and extravagance, they're not good. There's nothing wrong with having nice things. But when you try to live an extravagant life, a life above your means, that's not good. My parents couldn't afford a real nice bicycle. They couldn't. But we lived within our means. And by the grace of God, I had a bicycle as a little boy. I broke my arm on it, but it got better. And I learned how to ride that bicycle, and I had a good time on that bicycle. Maybe sometime I'll tell you about a bicycle later on in my childhood, a few years later. My dad bought me a bicycle. It was green. Oh, maybe one of these days I'll get to tell you about my green bicycle. But right now, I want you to think about just being happy with what you have and being content with what you do have. You know, the Bible teaches that we ought to be content with what we have. Let's all thank God for all the nice things that God has given us. God bless.